Hey everyone, my name is Pujya Priyadarshini and I have secured rank 11 in the 2018 Civil Services examination. And a little bit about myself. I have done my BCom Honours from Sri Ram College of Commerce in Delhi University. And then I went on to do a Masters in Public Administration from Columbia University in New York. I came back in 2016 and since then I've worked for about 2.5 years with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Delhi. And then recently was working with the Reliance Foundation in Mumbai when the result came out. So this has been my journey in terms of my education and work experience. And while doing all of this, also I have of course pursued my passion for wanting to get through the civil services. And this has been my 4th attempt. So it has been a long journey. And so yes, I would like to talk to you a little bit about that. So, as I mentioned, this has been my 4th attempt. I gave my first attempt in 2013 while I was preparing for my final year of BCom Honours in Sri Ram College of Commerce. After that, I went on and did my Masters. I came back in 2016. I wrote the civil services, went all the way till the interview. I was in the reserve list. I did not qualify. And of course, that was a tough year, I would honestly admit. And that is when I gave the attempt in 17, I did not clear the prelims. So, there was an up and then a complete low. And then I told myself, no, this is something I need to, get together, get my act together and try once more time for myself. And that is when I decided to take the 18 attempt. And here I am. And it's, of course, a very good feeling. But yes, the ups and downs have been part of this journey. There are a lot of times in this journey, I would say, when I've thought, should I just get up, let it go? Why am I, I am in a certain age of my life. Why am I not doing other things? There's a lot of sacrifices we all need to make. And that is where I think that motivation becomes very important. I was someone who was very clear that, yes, I do want to do this, but I did pursue a plan B consciously throughout. And that is why I kept up my job. And in that sense, my motivation there were 2 reasons. One, yes, I was influenced by my parents who have been civil servants. So that was a source of motivation for me, having grown up and seen the kind of work that they do. And second, having lived abroad with Columbia, as well as worked in the corporate sector, I realized the kind of platform that I would want to work for the country that the civil services does provide. And I was genuinely very motivated internally to want to do this. And that, I think, was what sustained me and kept me going. I would say current affairs is very important in this exam, for the mains especially. For the prelims, I would still say there was a lot of the static knowledge that I banked on for qualifying the preliminary examination. In the mains, yes, across the papers, including my optional, which was sociology, general studies is very important. And for that, I went out to the market and tried to figure out whether it's the monthly magazines or whatever is the general studies material available. Apart from that, newspaper reading has been one thing that I did on my own. That was one piece of complete self-study that I did. I used to read The Hindu every day for half an hour to 40 minutes and make my own notes wherever necessary I felt. So you have to organize your general studies. It is a monster to the extent everything is general and there's everything you need to cover under the sun. But then if you look at the pattern, if you study the exam, you can, bring that down into certain sections and then break it down for yourself. Even for the interview stage, general studies is about awareness. It's not so much detail that is required at the mains and the prelims level. So the nature and the monster that you would call general studies also changes depending on which stage of the exam you are in. I actually thoroughly enjoyed paper 1 because I enjoyed history. It is still something I'm really scared about because there can be questions, whether it's from art and culture or ancient and medieval India, that can throw you off. But generally, whether it was world history, so I really enjoyed this journey of studying paper 1. It was not my most scoring paper, but it was a paper I enjoyed. I would say how I did better and well in papers was paper 2 because polity was something I think I had a good grip of. So for the 4 general studies papers, I had 108 in GS paper 1, 114 in paper 2, a 99 in paper 3, and 115 in paper 4. Yes, I did my BCom Honours from Shriram. I went on to do a master's in public administration and then came back and picked sociology, both in 16 and in 18. That was the optional I went for. So why such a diverse, if I were to justify this, one, from commerce, that was an conscious decision to move away, and I wanted to do something in the area of development, and that is why I went forward and did a master's in public administration. So at Columbia, the entire structure of that course is very execution driven. So when I came back, I did consider public administration, and I looked at the syllabus, and I realized that what we had done, our courses were more around, foundation courses were politics of policy making. So we were not trained, if I were to say, in the theoretical aspects of public administration. So it would have been as new a subject as, say, picking up sociology. So between the two, I look again, interest trumped what I have done in terms of my education. And I realized I would enjoy doing sociology more. And that's why I decided to go ahead with socio. So I think in this process, it's the essay, the ethics paper, and the optional that can really set you apart. And for the essay paper, I would say I was a little more confident than I should have been, because I presume that I have a flair for writing. I do travel blogging, and I have written articles. So this is not something I need to put in a lot of my time and effort into. But having said that, I would really recommend that essay is something we have to take not as lightly. I used to do one question, only one essay, not both, in every 2 to 3 weeks. So I did about 4, maximum 5 tests, essay practices, practicing essays prior to the mains in 2018. And the paper this time around, if you see, it was a tricky one, especially part B, was not something you can easily grapple with. So I picked a different topic. So when I looked at the question paper, I realized it's not an easy essay questions. And in part A, poverty was something I realized everyone was going to pick. So one strategy I adopted while I was writing the exam was, let me pick up something that is not something the examiner is going to see again and again. So I picked border management, and I picked the last of part B as well, which was a topic around reality does not conform to the ideal, but confirms it. So it was a more difficult topic. I had to think a lot about it. But these were the 2 I picked as a strategy, just so that I have a different perspective in my answer than if I were also writing on poverty. So that was one. Second, if you can and you have the time, like I stopped studying 2 days before the mains. That is how I would unwind. To keep myself fresh, I don't study just before the exam. I watched a few TEDx videos. I actually heard a few commencement speeches, because these give you nice ideas. They sometimes give you nice openings. They give you nice conclusions. So if you have that kind of time and if you are that person, this is something perhaps you can incorporate also while preparing for the essay, but practice and have someone else look at your essays. That is an important part, because we might not realize whether the flow is how it should be. It's not an answer writing for GS. So border management, for example, I was slightly afraid that this should not come across as a security answer. So we have to be aware of this part, that when you're writing an essay, it's a language paper also, apart from data that we put in. For paper 4, the one thing I realized, and I think because having done it in 16 and then in 18, I did try and figure out what was it that I missed out. Though I qualified the mains in both years, what was it different I can do? One thing I realized was that I restricted myself to, I thought GS paper 4 is going to be a general paper. You can study, it asks you about aptitude. Any one of us can really answer it, or a case study is very generic. So I did not put in as much practice, I would say, in 2016. In 18, I did 2 things. One, I really practiced my case studies. Second is I made a list of the vocabulary. There is a vocabulary that is required for GS paper 4. For example, what is aptitude, emotional intelligence, probity? This is the jargon, if I were to say the term, that needs to be incorporated in these answers. So I made a vocabulary in my own words, not something I picked off Wikipedia, but actually made it in my own words, because they became my introduction in part A of that paper. And the other thing was examples. Because if you look at paper 4, things are such that you can never prepare for it completely. It is not that, there's like in paper 2, it's a question about Article 148, so I can go ahead and write everything I know about it. You will have to come up with examples. You will have to think of what makes your answer different while it's not so tangible in a sense. So their examples really help. think of a few examples, and that's what I did. Wherever I could, then I incorporated. I really invested in examples in part A of that paper, and part B, which was the case study, which I used to attack first because it took me longer, practice.